So thank you very much for joining us this morning. This is obviously a really important practical session, and we thank Arkk for joining us. There is another event next Wednesday, if you haven't heard about it, on climate disclosures and meeting the guidance around TCFD. So sign up if you haven't yet and would be interested in that. Please keep yourselves muted while we're going through the presentation, just so that we can hear the speakers. We're going to record it, and the recording will be available later. We really welcome all your questions, so put them on the chat and we'll scoop them up at 2 points: before we do the demo and after we do the demo. If you knock on to the next one, Jenny, we can see our speakers today. So there's Amanda from Emperor and Jenny and Mary from Arkk. Before Jenny and Mary introduce themselves, Amanda's just going to set the context and the scene for what we're talking about today.
Hi everyone, good morning. As Vic said, I'm just going to frame this session really for you so that you have a bit of a broader context. And the first thing I want to say is this is, and hope it's reassuring, this new ESEF compliant requirement it's important to think about it in terms of it being just another output. It's not a change to your existing reporting workflow or timetable. You're not throwing out all of the hard work and process that you've developed over the years. It's just simply another output that sits alongside your web PDF and your print ready version. And Arkk are going to be talking today about one of the solutions on offer, and we are framing those solutions as sort of 2 options. The first is what I call parallel tagging, and this is a process that really happens alongside your content edit or your production phase, and it generally uses a proprietary software. There are a huge number on offer and lots more are coming to market all the time. Examples are Wdesk, which you may have heard of, or Control Print, which some of you actually may already use to edit the content on your financials. The second workflow or second solution is post-production tagging. And that's what Arkk are going to talk to us about today. And it's a process that, bar a little consultation late summer, early autumn about the appropriate taxonomy and tagging for your business, really the bulk of the work is done much closer to sign off. And it's a process where really Arkk take all of the, or most of the responsibility and the workload. They generate the file, they apply the tagging, and your responsibility is around verification of that. So 2 sort of quite different approaches, and we'll perhaps do a summary of those at the end for you. And also just to mention that we are hosting another session with Control Print in July, and we'll be sending out further information on that. So please do attend that as well if it's of interest. And I'll hand over to Jenny and Mary now from Arkk Solutions to talk through the requirements in a little more detail and their solution for it.
Hi everyone, I'll just introduce myself and then let Mary introduce herself as well. So I am the CFO at Arkk, and I am spearheading our offering for ESEF. And I've been with Arkk for about 4 years. Prior to Arkk, I worked in the audit department of KPMG for 8 years and worked on some listed businesses, so I fully understand the rush and the timescales around year-end reporting, and all the stress that comes with that. So we very much try to tailor our offering to as Amanda said, not cause further stress around the year end, and sort of bolt that on the end with very little interference with your current year-end process. So Mary, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Thanks, Jenny. Hi everyone, I'm Mary. I manage our iXBRL team over here in Belfast. Like Jenny, I've been with Arkk for 4 years now. Today I'm going to take you through the demo show you what the process looks like from an internal view, and also what the outputs will be like from your side at the end.
Okay. So just a little bit about Arkk and our background. So we were founded in 2009, so we've been around for a little while. Tagging is something we've done for a number of years. We were initially founded to address the iXBRL mandate through HMRC for the tagging that goes alongside the tax returns at year end. So we've been doing that for over 10 years now. We've got a number of FTSE 350 clients and large accounting firms that use us to do their iXBRL tagging for HMRC. We are ISO 27001 certified, and we are the leading UK-based iXBRL tagging provider at the moment. And the objective of all of this, as Amanda said, is to try and make the process of adding this ESEF requirement into your year-end timetable as sort of stress-free as possible. So to create a partnership with Emperor and yourselves to make that as smooth as possible. So as I've said, we're a UK-based service, which I think is quite important to let you guys know. There are some services out there that send documents to India and outside of the EU, and we think it's very important that you speak to somebody who speaks the same language. You have an individual who you can speak to who has tagged your accounts, and that you can have a good conversation with somebody about why decisions have been made and what the best requirements are for the tagging. We've got experienced teams. Everyone that we've trained up to do the ESEF tagging has at least 2 years experience doing HMRC iXBRL tagging. So they are very experienced in the iXBRL space. And we come with a level of guidance and experience around what tags have been applied to other businesses and other accounts. There is a level of ambiguity in some of the tagging, and we've worked closely with some of the big four, PwC and KPMG are the ones that I'm closest with, and you know, a number of FTSE 100 firms that we've done proof of concepts on to try and work out some of the areas the tags don't always fit that well. You know, what are the industry standards? What are people doing? And I think that's really beneficial with this ESEF tagging. So this may be a repeat for a number of people. I don't know how much experience people have on this call, so I'm just going to start at the beginning just to run through what ESEF's about. So ESEF stands for the European Single Electronic Format, and it's been rolled out by ESMA, which is the European Securities and Markets Authority. It's been around for a while, so it first came to light in 2014. So even though it hasn't hit a lot of people's radar until now, it has been in the background for us for the last couple of years. We've been developing the offering and how it best works. So the aim of ESEF is to try and improve the sort of access, analysis and comparability of financial statements. So the idea is that analysts can download sets of financial statements in certain industry sectors and pump the tags into a bit of software, and they can produce analysis off the back of that very easily. So all main market listed firms are required to produce their annual reports using the iXBRL tagging in XHTML. But it's only the primary statements initially that will be tagging. So no notes for the first 2 years, and then we'll move to block tagging of notes in 2022. But you must tag all numbers in those primary statements. So for other iXBRL tagging, like the HMRC tagging, there's sometimes, if there's no tag that fits very well, then you can just leave it. For ESEF, you must tag every number in those primary statements. And as Amanda said at the beginning of this, we don't expect businesses to just use the ESEF tagged accounts on their website. You know, the XHTML doesn't print that well, so the way that we see it working is you'll produce your glossies as you do normally, your PDF. We can tag a PDF, so we will take that off Emperor and tag that PDF and convert it into XHTML. You can view that on the screen, and you'll see this from Mary in a bit. You can view it on the screen and it will look very, very simple. It will look exactly the same as the PDF, but with the tags applied. But as I say, it doesn't print very well, so the PDF is still really required for if people want to print it. So just to run through clearly what the requirements are. So who it's applicable to, as I said, main market listed businesses. What we're tagging, so it's every page of the document must be in XHTML format, and we are tagging the consolidated IFRS financial statements. If there's anybody in this call who still reports under UK GAAP, UK GAAP businesses do not need to have tagging applied. They will still be required to convert their statements into XHTML, but they don't need to be tagged. That doesn't affect many people, it's generally just investment trusts, but it's worth just noting. So where the documents are going to be filed, so they need to be filed with the national storage mechanism, which in the UK is going to be Companies House. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. Who it applies, or when it applies, so for all accounting periods starting on or after the 1st of January 2020. So the 31st of December 2020 year ends are going to be the first in scope. And we've had questions about Brexit as well and whether that's affected ESEF requirements. The answer is no. As the UK was in the EU on the 1st of January 2020, it's being mandated into UK law. So for now, it is going to carry on as is. Whether in a few years' time they decide to change it, who knows? But for now, Brexit has not affected ESEF. So just a little bit more about what iXBRL is. So iXBRL is Extensible Business Reporting Language. And it's basically, the way to think about it is, it's like a barcode on something in a supermarket. It allows a computer to read numbers. So if we have a look at what the tagging is, it applies a number of different parameters to a number. So if we're looking at revenue, for example, it will apply the IFRS concept revenue because we're tagging using an IFRS taxonomy. It will attach things like it's in GBP or it's in euros. It will say what period it's for. So for the year starting January 19 to December 19, it will say whether it's in millions or billions or pounds or pence. And it will also say whether it's a debit or a credit. So those are the sort of parameters that are applied to each number in the financial statements. And then there's a new concept that comes with ESEF that's slightly different to most of the other iXBRL tagging that's been done historically. And that's a concept around extending and anchoring. So as I said earlier, all numbers in the primary financial statements have to be tagged. And there are certain instances where the narrative and the numbers that your business has put in their primary statements is unique to your business. So the example we've used here is revenue from phone sales. So say you're Vodafone or something. There's not going to be an IFRS tag that we can apply to revenue from phone sales. So what you do is you create an extension and you will call it revenue from phone sales. And then you will anchor that back to the closest IFRS tag being revenue. And you're required to do that for anything that doesn't fit perfectly into the IFRS taxonomy. And that is where I believe we can really help, because that is where things start becoming a little bit grayer and a little bit more difficult. And we've done a lot of work with businesses so far and the audit profession to work out the best ways of using this extending and anchoring so that it works. So a little bit more about audit. This is a question that I get quite regularly. Is the tagging going to be audited? I think it's probably safe to say that this late in the game, considering none of the authorities have come out with a definitive yes or no, the audit firms are assuming that the answer is probably going to be no for the first year. So what they are still preparing for the fact that they may require audit, but we don't expect that. So we expect that there will be some sort of level of light touch review in year one, and they will expect some process and controls to be in place so that the reporter or the company can review the tags that have been applied and feel comfortable with the tagging. But we don't expect there to be an audit. We are still waiting on guidance. We have been told to expect something towards the end of this month, but the end of the month is approaching fast, so I'm not too hopeful, but we'll see what we get. But I will communicate to Emperor, when we know, and they can communicate further. But for now, I think we'll assume probably that there will be no audit requirement in year one. I think that's probably likely to change in year two and going forwards. But for the first year, I think they will just try and encourage businesses to get the ESEF tagging done and just get through the first year. So some of the sort of latest updates that have sort of come across my desk, I suppose, in the last month or two. The first is around the national storage mechanism. So, as I said, the national storage mechanism is going to be Companies House. There is still a question mark about how the ESEF documents will be filed with Companies House. We are expecting a UK-specific national extension to the ESEF taxonomy to allow us to file with Companies House, because currently Companies House use items such as the company number, the balance sheet date, and those sorts of bits of information to file their financial statements, and they are not things that the current ESEF taxonomy asks for. So I expect there to be a handful, sort of half a dozen to a dozen tags that we have to apply on top of the ESEF taxonomy to allow us to file the documents with the national storage mechanism. But that's still being fully clarified at the moment. COVID-19, so people have been asking me, is it likely to be delayed? The answer is we don't honestly know. There's been a bit of back and forth on that. As we haven't heard anything yet, the audit firms are assuming that the answer is no, it won't be delayed, and we should all just push ahead. So that is the feedback that I'm currently getting at the moment. And I know that a number of European countries, Spain being one, have produced very detailed documentation as to how ESEF will be completed, filed, etc. So there are a number of European countries that definitely will not be delayed. So it won't be an across-the-board delay if there is any. So I think it's something that we all just push ahead with, to be honest. And the last thing that people have asked about is assurance reports from auditors. So if it's looking like there is not going to be any audit requirement in year one, auditors are suggesting that businesses look at getting some sort of assurance on the ESEF tagging. There is likely to be an audit requirement at some point in the future, and we should make sure that your auditors are aligned with the tags and the thought process behind the tags, so that when it comes into scope for audit, there are not significant changes to the tagging. So they are suggesting that you have a chat to them about possible assurance pieces of work that they can do around the ESEF tagging, is the conversations that I've had with them. Okay. So we've had a few questions around the differences between the HMRC iXBRL tagging and the ESEF iXBRL tagging. So I've just put this slide together which addresses a few of them. I'll run through it quickly, but you can look at it after. So starting off, which companies require tagging. So it's only main market listed businesses for ESEF. For HMRC, it's all businesses in the UK and Ireland that submit tax returns. The tags that are being applied, so I've talked about the extending and anchoring for ESEF, and all numbers must be tagged in those primary statements for ESEF, whereas for the HMRC iXBRL tagging, if there isn't an applicable tag, you just leave a number untagged, and for the iXBRL tagging for HMRC, it's the whole document, not just the primary statements. Turnaround times, so for ESEF, we offer a 24-hour standard turnaround time with 4- and 6-hour options, with out-of-hours options for those businesses that require them. For the HMRC tagging, it's a 15 business day turnaround, so there's a very different sense of urgency for that tagging from our perspective. Number of reviews, the ESEF tagging is a public document. It's going to be scrutinised heavily by investors and analysts, so there is a significant level of review at our end on those tags and those documents. For HMRC tagging, we usually only just do one review and then send it back to the client, so there's a much more rigorous review process for ESEF. The time for review, so for ESEF, there's 1 month to review the tagging analysis, which I'll talk about in a minute, whereas HMRC, there's a couple of weeks to review those documents. And the format of the documents, the ESEF documents, the XHTML has to be a mirror of the PDF. It needs to look just as good as your PDF. For HMRC, no one really looks at those documents. As long as the tags are applied and it is uploads to the document uploads with the tax return, there's no requirement for any sort of formatting. So that's an important difference. So I'm just going to run through a couple of different year-end process scenarios. And I think it's important at this point just to stress that Arkk is a service provider. We use some software that we've brought in to do the services that we're offering. We are quite happy to work with other software. So if you decide that you currently use Control Print and you want to continue using Control Print for the ESEF offering, we do speak to Control Print, and we are more than happy to do tagging using their software if that's something that you would like to explore. So that is an offering that we do offer to companies. So, but the main offering that we're putting out there is this one that we've got the timeline for here. So we've got this tagging analysis phase where we will onboard you as a client, and we will take you usually your prior year financial statements, or possibly a mock-up of your current year ones if you have them and they're significantly different, and we will apply tags to the prior year financial statements and agree with you how you want them tagged and what you want them to look like. So we basically do a dummy run on your prior year financial statements. That takes us 15 days. We then give them back to you, and there's a month for you to come back to us but to come back with as many questions from the auditors, from anyone in the business, and to discuss and agree those tags. After that period, we will all agree and sign off that that is what you're happy with for the prior year financial statements. And then we move on to the year end. We expect the year end to be pretty similar to the prior year. If there's some significant differences, we will ask that you let us know in advance so we can have some of those discussions whilst you're going through the year end process, to try and be as ready as possible for when we receive the final PDF or Word document to tag. When you've agreed your final document and it's signed off, you upload that through a secure portal to us, and then we have 24 hours to roll forward the tags from the prior year financial statements and to apply any new tags any different numbers or changes that are in the current year financial statements. They then they get reviewed internally 3 times actually, and then they come back to you for a review and final deliverables. So you've got up to 2 weeks after we return those statements to come back to us with any changes. But yeah, I mean, we can turn them around in a matter of hours. So the idea is that this is bolted on to the end of your current process, and if the pre-tagging analysis is done as designed and we stay communicating through the year-end process, we should be able to turn around the tagging within 24 hours for you to then upload that onto your website and give to investors. The other process is what Amanda was talking about, so doing in production tagging, so using control print. So we can do that as well. It's a very similar process. We would suggest you do tagging on your prior year financial statements for a sort of tagging analysis. Then we've then got a month to run through them and the thoughts on them. And then rather than taking the final document, we do the tagging during the year-end process, so that you can release the ESEF tagged accounts at the same time as you release your glossies. Okay, so do we want to run through any questions that might have come through now?
So none have come through on the chat, but if anybody's got anything they want to ask now, feel free to unmute yourselves and ask.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
I think I've just uploaded a PDF on the group chat, I think, that refers to the accounts being considered to be signed off by the directors prior to the tags being applied. And I had read this document, which came out, I think, on the beginning of June, to mean that the auditors had no involvement with the ESEF version because the accounts are effectively signed off as a true and fair representation by the directors prior to this happening. Or even if the tags have been applied early, the tags are not being considered part of it. So I took it to mean that this was confirmation that the auditors had no role, but earlier you said that decision had still not been made. So I just wondered if you could clarify this for me.
Well, so the auditors take their instruction both from, from the FRC really, rather than the UK government, as it were. So they are, that's why they're saying for the first year, they're pretty much saying definitely not. Until they have guidance from the FRC as to exactly how they expect the process to work, they are not officially going out with that to their clients, but that's what they've sort of said to me in the background. Other countries are requiring audit of this, Spain being one. So I think it's still a little bit up in the air. So the government have put that paper out there, which shows their stance. I agree with you. I don't really understand how you can have an audit if the directors are then not signing off on it. But there could be an instance where they say that they would like the auditors to, there has to be some sort of level of, might not be an audit, but some sort of light level of review or something like that. So, as with the front half of the financial statements, they're not audited, but they have to be consistent, and they are reviewed by the auditors for consistency with the primary statements and the notes. So it's likely, I think, to be something along those lines. But everybody's screaming out for more guidance. The auditors are, we are, everybody is, and the FRC are just not really coming out with anything particularly useful. They put a survey out, which I answered, but even that really didn't ask any, what I would say is particularly useful questions. So watch this space.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Mala Krishnasamy. So I just have a question. You were mentioning about you would also do the tagging during the year-end process, like for example in Control Print or any other software. How would you also pick up any changes that we go through those processes? How would you control that changes, if there are any?
Yes, so there we have a so the software we use is from a company called Amana, who are also producing the software that companies' house are using to check the submissions, and they also have a bit of software that checks the version control, basically, so the changes from one version to the next, which they actually sell as a separate module to some auditors, not in the UK, but PwC in Germany have bought it off them. So that's what we use. Control Print, I believe, have something in their software that obviously has the version control in there, but the background tagging software that Control Print are using is an Amana-based software, so we're very comfortable with using that.
Okay, thank you.
Great. No others on the chat, Jenny. I think you can carry on.
Okay, Mary, over to you.
Thanks, Jenny. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to take you through a demo. I hope everyone can see my screen okay? Yes, great. I'll take your silence as a yes. Okay, so first off today, I'm going to take you through a demo of what the tagging process looks like internally. This is an internal process, so you'll never have to get involved with it, but I know a lot of our clients have showed interest in how we actually do it. Then I will show you what the output will look like from your side and how you will go about reviewing the tags that we have applied. So I have a document already loaded into this. This is our tagging software. It's split down into each page, and over here you will see the ESEF taxonomy and all the tags that it contains. So first off, I'll show you how to tag some text. If we go to page 8, we can see here the company name. You can search and drag and drop. And that is applied the company name to that text. And that does become a lot more complex when we go to look at some of these statements in the report. So if I scroll down, if we look at the balance sheet, this has already been tagged. The balance sheet, any of the tables we would convert into a table to make the tagging a little bit easier. Over here, everything highlighted has been tagged, and these two have been left untagged. All of these, as they're in green, they are directly from the IFRS, the ESEF taxonomy. However, when I go into the review documents, you'll see other tags that we have extended and anchored. I'm going to get rid of my search. You can see here that there are many tags in the taxonomy. If we scroll down, you would have to be very familiar with the taxonomy to pick it up and start tagging yourself. We've spent the last 18+ months reviewing the taxonomy, and it is quite similar to the IFRS taxonomy that we use for HMRC and Irish revenue submissions at the moment. We are aware of the terms that will cross both taxonomies. Okay. So if I go back in here, and if I look at the statement of financial position, and we'll get assets and current assets, not all current assets. And that has applied the tag to these figures. We can see the current assets. If we go in here, we can look at the actual details that have been applied. So it's in euro, it's rounded to thousands, and this is all set up at the beginning of the file. And that's what we do. So we go through every number in the primary statements, and we apply the tag. First point of contact or first port of call would be the ESEF taxonomy. That is ideally where we want to take the tag from. But as Jenny mentioned earlier, that's not always possible depending on the concepts in the annual report. And that's it. I'm not going to spend too long on this because it is an internal process, but I know a lot of our clients have shown interest in how that works. When we've completed that and we've completed all our internal reviews, we will then send you back your handover pack, which looks like this. You will get an Excel report, which I'll come back to later on, and you'll get this zip file. I added the PDF in here just for handiness sake on this call. This is our zip file. In here, you'll have your extended taxonomy that will be needed for submission. Otherwise, the regulator won't be able to read the tags. This is also background information that will be needed for submission. and then your reports folder, which is what will be of big interest. In here, you have your XBRL report. That is your iXBRL. That is the report that you will submit to the regulator. You have an XHTML report. That just looks like a web page, but it does have your tags built in. And a lot of our clients have suggested that they're going to have this available on their website for downloads for analytics reasons. And then we have our preview report. Again, this will look like a web page, but it has an inline viewer built in so that anyone can go onto your website and look at the tags that have been applied. And I have this opened already, as it does take a few minutes for the inline viewer to load up. You can see here the output is great. It looks practically identical to your PDF. However, as Jay said, can't really replace your PDF because it does not print as well. Over here on the right hand side is your inline viewer, so this will show all the tags. I'm just going to pop on highlight first. And you can use your arrows to go down through them. So you can see first tag is from the IFRS taxonomy, and that's the name of reporting entity. There are some tags outside the primary statements that are mandatory if they are in the accounts. There's about 10 of these, and the company name is one of them. On to the next tag, and here is our primary statements. So everything in green is from the IFRS taxonomy, and then everything in yellow is a tag that we've extended, as we don't feel there is a concept that matches back in the IFRS taxonomy. So you can see there's a lot of information there that we have tagged. And if I click on one of them, sorry, I am working from quite a remote part in Ireland, so my internet is a little bit slow, so I do apologise. If you click on one, it will give you the details of the tag. So concept from the IFRS taxonomy. This item has been tagged as comprehensive income. This is a brief overview of what that actually is, the date that has been applied to, so this is the current year, what the fact value actually is, what the accuracy is, so that has been rounded to thousands and it's in euro. And if there is a corresponding tag in the document from a prior year, that would show any change. That's the legal entity identifier there as well. It's very easy to read, and you can go through them using the arrows. And if we look here at this one is an extended tag. If we look, this one, you can see here that it's from the company rather than the IFRS taxonomy, and that identifies it as an extension tag. This is what we have called it, and that is just from the label name. This is what it's anchored to in the IFRS taxonomy, and you can have more than one anchor. You can also have wider and narrower anchors. And then with changes in equity, you also need to add a member, and that identifies the dimension of that tag. So it is quite complex, and you need to be familiar with that. We do have dimensions with HMRC and Irish submissions at the moment. And in this case, the member is issued capital, which relates to your header here. And again, you can see all the tag details. But it's quite a nice document to use for review purposes. So once you've fully reviewed that, I would then recommend that you go onto the Excel document in your handover pack, which is back here. Oh, I actually think I have it open. I do. And it's split out per table. So you can see all the tags that have been applied. However, it's not quite as nice to look at. But all your tagging information in here is in here. I would recommend that you use this file to do like bulk reviews at the end. So internally, what we use it for is to just double check that we haven't missed any of our scaling out. So as I mentioned, that it was rounded to thousands in the accounts. You can see very clearly here that there's 4 items that haven't been, and they're right, they shouldn't have been rounded to thousands. It's very easy to pick up anything that's different. Also, currency is euro. If there was a GBP in there accidentally, it's a very easy file to pick that up with. And so once you've fully reviewed, then you can come back to us with any questions. You have a month to do so, and we can have a look. If you want to reward some of the extension tags, we can do so. And I think that's it from the demo. Any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, or anything that you want me to go over again, I'm happy to do so. And I'm going to hand it back to you, Jenny. Thank you.
Alison, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Sure. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, great. So earlier, you mentioned, well, not you specifically, but one of you mentioned that where you have gap accounts that you're applying the gap standards, that you don't need to tag those accounts, you'd only need to convert. I just joined, so I just wanted to clarify and make sure that I'd heard correctly. You only need to convert to HTML, yeah?
Yeah, so that's correct. So every main market listed business is caught by ESEF, but the taxonomy that we're using is an IFRS-based taxonomy. So you are only required to do the tagging if you report under IFRS, which will be most cases, because if you produce consolidated financial statements, then they will have to be under IFRS. So what it does say loosely is if the gap that you're using is closely aligned to IFRS, then you can choose to tag them, but there is not a requirement. So if your business is UK GAAP business, and you would like to tag them, then we can tag them, because we can extend and anchor tags that don't fit perfectly. So we will be able to do tagging using the IFRS taxonomy, but it's not a requirement. So you are required still to convert the document to XHTML, but that is relatively quick and easy to do. That's just a software thing, basically. So you just put the PDF into the software and it will convert it to XHTML. The thing that's more difficult and requires and time consuming, requires the knowledge, obviously, is the tagging. So yeah, just IFRS.
Thank you.
Okay, so is there any more questions come through, or?
Nope.
No. Okay, fine. So I'm just going to run through a few of the FAQs that have sort of raised their head in the last month, that Emperor and both ourselves have seen. So just to answer some people's questions. So the XHTML annual report is the official document of record that needs to be published on the company's website. So it does need to be published. Some people have said, oh, can we just file it and leave it at that? No, it will need to be uploaded onto the company's website so that people can download it and use it for analysis purposes. I've already mentioned this, but yeah, we use ESEF tagging software from a company called Amana, who are a German-based company, and they are a spin-off of some Big Four accountants, technology accountants, spun off about 10 years ago, and they do a number of different pieces of software for SEC filing and other iXBRL offerings throughout Europe. So they're a reasonably big outfit, and we've been working with them now for about a year, and we work very closely with them to help develop the software and make sure that we are getting the best use of the software that we've got. As I've said as well, we can use Arkk, can use other technology partners if you would like us to. So more than happy to do that. We are also more than happy to provide a review service. So if you were to want to use WDesk or Control Print and do the tagging first off in-house, but you want somebody to review your tagging, we're more than happy to offer that service as well. So you can speak to Emperor about that if you'd like. So what we really aim to do is produce a flexible offering that accommodates all the regulatory requirements, but still produces a great design document. So as you can see from Mary's demonstration, when you look at that inline viewer document where you can see all the tags, it effectively looks like the PDF to the human eye. So it's a very good replica of the PDF. People also asked how the iXBRL tags are sort of applied to the XHTML document. The software works, so it's all integrated basically. So you put the PDF into the software, and the iXBRL tags are integrated into the XHTML document, and then you have the outputs that Mary's just showed you for submission and review. The version control, this has sort of already been touched on, but we have a bit of software that looks at any of the changes between, say, version 1 and a version 2. So if you have made 2 changes in the document, we roll the tags forward, so we don't manually tag anything again. So if you're happy with the tags previously, it is the technology that is rolling those tags forward into the new version. And then there is a separate bit of software that will look at the changes between the version 1 and the version 2. And it will even pick up on things. So if you've changed a picture or changed some fonts or those sorts of things, it will pick up on that as well. So it's quite a clever bit of software. So if you think you've only made 2 changes, it might tell you you've made 3 or 4. So yeah, that's quite nice. Is there anything we can leverage from the HMRC tagging for ESEF tagging? In a way, yes. As Mary said, it's a similar process. Some of the concepts in the taxonomy are similar. The extending and anchoring is different. And whilst the taxonomies are similar, they are also different. They are different taxonomies. So I think, you know, the basis for our staff who have spent at least a couple of years tagging using the HMRC taxonomy is very useful for them then moving over to tagging ESEF, but it is a different taxonomy and skill set required. So our staff go through a minimum of a couple of months training before we let them do any sort of pre-tagging analysis with the new taxonomy, just to give you an idea. And then working in a secure environment. So yes, we've had some questions around security. So as I mentioned earlier on in the presentation, we're ISO 27001 certified. We have a secure portal that you can upload your documents onto, which from there we do all of the tagging, and then I will upload them back to the secure portal for you to download the deliverables. So yeah, we work in a fully secure environment. The process that we're using is very similar to the HMRC tagging, and as I say, we're an outsourced provider for some of the big 4 for doing that. So you should feel pretty comfortable that we've been through a number of FTSE 350 and big 4 audit firms IT requirements around security. So I feel pretty comfortable that we tick most boxes on those fronts. Okay, so yes, if there's any further questions.
Jenny, I've had one privately here. Can you tell me why the ESEF version doesn't print well?
Now, that's slightly beyond my technological expertise. Basically, it's the XHTML. Quite why, I can't tell you. But it loses a lot of the alignment and things, I believe. Yeah.
It will also be a simple fact of colours are set up differently. So okay. a web PDF is RGB, a print PDF is CMYK. So they just have different colour values so that they render appropriately for the 2 different mediums.
There you go. Great. No more questions on the chat. Great. Very comprehensive. So thank you so much. We will, when we put this seminar online, we'll also share details of Jenny and Mary with you in case you have questions you want to go direct with. And obviously, please do ask your client, director, account manager, etc. But otherwise, thank you so much, Amanda, Jenny and Mary, and see everybody else again soon.